Alright, so I had a chance to look at your lesson for tomorrow, and focusing on the word work portion.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that you had mentioned that last time you were working on context clues in isolation with the girls. And so would you be able to talk about how they did with that and why you feel that this lesson is now an appropriate lesson at the time?
So last week we started with context clues and we did them in isolation, and they were able to, determine the meaning of unknown words just with like a sentence or two that were pretty constructed to be specifically for focusing on context clues.
Yeah.
So I definitely decided we need to work on it in a more authentic way. So we did do a reading passage last Thursday and tried to use context clues to determine the meaning of the unknown words.
Mm-hmm.
But I just noticed that they struggled with the passage. So I think it's just we need to practice more like authentically and with more just more practice with it and figuring out the meaning of unknown words. And what I found last week was that they were able to sometimes come to the right, like, a pretty close definition, but then when you would ask them, like, well, what in the text made you think that, they would just repeat the word in the phrase. So, like, I remember one of the words was torrential, and one of them said, like, well, that means bad, really bad. And I was like, okay, well, what made you think that in the text? And they were like, well, just torrential rain.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, okay. So I found that they are using their background knowledge a little bit, too, when figuring out the words.
Okay.
So then I was like, oh, well, are all of the words we're looking at words that they've kind of heard before, or that they think they know.
Mm-hmm.
So today what I did was we went through, it's from their Reader's Theater script, from their fluency, we went through and we talked about a few different words, and I was like, oh, have you heard of this word? Like, kind of thumbs up, thumbs to the side, thumbs down to get an idea. And so there was one word that I had, like, kind of made a note of, but, the one knew it right away. She was like, oh, elevated. That means, like, you keep something up in the air. So, like, I was able to, I definitely know that the words that they're going to encounter tomorrow are words that they've either, like, heard maybe once or twice, but they're not sure of what they mean.
Okay.
So I think, like, that will cause them to use, like, the text a little bit more in terms of figuring out the word versus just, like, saying the word again and telling me what.
So you're saying last time when they were reading the passage, you felt that they struggled because they weren't properly using their background knowledge to determine the meaning, or?
I think they were using their background knowledge appropriately. I think I was kind of, like, trying to force them to use the, like, certain types of context clues that we can use. So I think what I am looking for in this lesson is to, like, just, like, let them use whatever they can to figure out the meaning of the unknown word, because that's what good readers do. Like, you don't just have to find, like, the synonym in the sentence or, the antonym. So, like, kind of let them, like, develop their thinking and figuring out what these unknown words mean, whether it's using their background knowledge or, like, oh, the text says this. So just kind of, like, giving them the opportunity to, like, figure it out and think on their own, I think, is kind of what I'm looking to do.
And then you had said that they had trouble, like, replacing the unknown word with, like, a possible definition. What do you think you might do to help them with that piece of the strategy?
Yeah, so I think probably since they know there is the one word, like, elevated, they know that's in there and they know the meaning of it, I could just kind of model that briefly with them, like, oh, I use my background knowledge, I think I know what this means, and then, like, show them how to just, like, replace the word to, like, check for understanding. So I think that would be a good thing to model with them, and I do want to keep, like, the modeling pretty short in this, because I want them to have the time to just, like, I envision them working together and kind of talking through their ideas, because I found that, like, when they utilize each other, sometimes they help each other out, like, in, like, funny ways. Like, one of them will say something and the other one will, like, be able to build onto it. So I definitely want to utilize that. So I think probably modeling kind of with the known word example and showing them how to fill in, like, with a possible definition. To start, and then kind of just letting them, like, work through it as much as possible for that, like, independent practice time.
And so during that independent practice time, when they're working through it together and discussing, what do you see yourself doing to produce the outcome that you
I
hope
think
for?
I think initially I'm just going to give them like time to talk and kind of pretend that I'm not paying attention, like try and listen to what they're saying but not be involved. But I think if they are struggling that much and they're really stuck, like just kind of go like having them like go back to the anchor chart we have, like Goodreaders, like providing suggestions of things that they can do, or like reminding them what good readers do, I guess. And I think even just like kind of I guess like I could within like the passage, like just kind of like read again aloud what, like if they're stuck on a one word, like read the sentences around it and just kind of be like like just trail off and see if they can, like, if they pick up on something or something like that.
Okay, so if you notice them struggling, you'll read the sentence aloud for them, like the sentences that come before and after the unknown word, and then just kind of like start to think aloud.
Yes.
But not finish.
But not finish, and try and give them that time to work through it. So.
And then what if you think that the students are correctly identifying the unknown word quickly?
I guess.
Is there something you might do to like further their thinking? Or?
Right. I guess. So if they're able to go through it and like quickly identify the unknown word. I would want them to, like, be able to explain ask them to explain their thinking, so not just take, like, oh, this word must mean this, like, really have them explain their thought process in that, and I think that could be a little more difficult for them to, like, have to explain their thinking, so I guess that's what I would go to next.
And so if you find them, like, determining meaning of the unknown words pretty easily, ask them about that process, like, what thoughts brought them to that meaning.
Yeah.
And what do you think would be the benefit of doing that?
I think, like, having them tell me their steps, then I can, like, provide that positive reinforcement for them, because I think a lot of times they just, like, skip over words, and they'll tell me, like, oh, yeah, well, I like, just read it to read it, and I just get through it. So I think, like, providing them with, like, a concrete example of, like, look what you just did. You were able to, like, explain your thinking, figure out an unknown word, and that's what good readers do. So I think that will hopefully give them, like, it'll give them success, and I'll be able to utilize that to, like, build their confidence, I guess.
And so specific praise, like, I like how you,
yes,
went back and
and
kind of repeat that thought process to them.
Yes, yeah. So giving them, that feedback. Like, I love how you use these clues from the text, and that, like, helped your thinking. Or I loved how you used the background knowledge, or whatever it might be. So definitely giving them that skill-specific praise in that moment, I think, will be a benefit for them.
And then if they're able to communicate that to you, it kind of shows...
that they were able to not only figure out the meaning of the unknown word, but they're able to, put their thinking, articulate their thinking. Yeah. So that would clearly show me that they understand how to use the context clues to figure out the meaning of unknown words.
Awesome. Great. And then... just how do you think you see yourself closing lessons? So the girls have a lot of time to talk and discuss and work with each other.
Yeah, I think I would have them, they'll share with me, like, what they came up with. And again, that would be another opportunity to just be like, well, what was your thinking behind that? Like, if it weren't to have come up to that point yet. So just giving them that chance to kind of talk through their thinking, and I can provide as much, skill-specific praise as I can.
Okay. And then what would you like me to look at during the lesson today?
So,
or tomorrow? Tomorrow lesson.
I'm thinking, because I do want them, like, working together, so, like, maybe timing the modeling in the beginning, and then timing the part where they're just, like, practicing together.
Okay.
I think that'll be good, and then... because that'll give me an idea of how much time I'm allowing for them to work together. And then... I guess if I notice that they're struggling and I start to like jump in, like just the types of questions that I'm asking.
Yeah.
So I make sure that I'm not leading them to the answer or like forcing them to like think the way that I'm thinking because that, I want them to be thinking for themselves.
Okay, so I'll time the modeling, time their discussion while they're how much time it takes them to determine the meanings of the unknown words together, and then record the types of questions that you ask if they, are starting to like struggle during that practice time.
Yeah, okay. That would be great.
Alrighty.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks.